drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all.
Welcome to The Last Word. Of course, I am Jeff Barnes, along with the amazing Greg Rector and Brock Vieira. Yes, I made it back from Daytona in time to be here tonight. That tells you how fast I was driving across I-4. Guys, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing really well, Jeff. Brock, how about yourself?
I cannot complain. Another great Saturday full of great games. I'm ready to talk about it.
You got it.
I mean, Brock, you were at UNLV. Give us a little recap of what went down there.
Well, I think the best way to put it was by a sign made, I believe, by a student today, and that was Sluka. It's UNLV, not UNILV, and that kind of describes what today was all about for the Rebels. It was about football and business as usual, and that's exactly what happened. Absolutely thrashed Fresno State in their conference opener. The score was, I'm going to pull it up so I can give you all, you beautiful folks, appropriate stats, 59-14. I'll repeat that. The score is 59-14. At halftime, UNLV was up 21-0. And not only were they impressive in a variety of ways. UNLV was able to score typically in a typical way on offense. They also had a punt block that was returned for a touchdown. They had a kick return for a touchdown for the first time for the Rebels in 13 years. And Malik Williams, in his first start in UNLV colors, had a phenomenal day. 13 of 16 passing, 182 yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. He also had 12 carries for 119 yards and a score as well. Ricky White III got back to business. He finally has targets thrown his way again, and the proof was in the pudding. 10 receptions, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. He also was the guy that returned that punt block for a touchdown. Massive win for the Rebels. And, of course, everyone wants to talk about the offense, but it was the defense that was absolutely critical for them today. I believe at the end of the third quarter, Fresno State had minus 15 yards rushing. They were absolutely ineffective in all aspects of the game. They threw an interception on the second play from scrimmage in the game, and quite frankly, was never able to get back on track. Jackson Wardard had a phenomenal day. He was in the backfield, an absolute tackling monster. UNLV ended up achieving 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions their DBs were able to pick off from Fresno State today, including an absolute beauty caught by Mr. Catalan at the opposing 1-yard line, where he was able to snag it and put 1 foot in bounds. Big win for the Rebels today. It established themselves as one of the true contenders for that non-Power 5 automatic qualifying bid. And with a short week to go, they play Syracuse this Friday in Las Vegas. And if they win that game, that's 3 non-conference wins against Power 5 opponents this season. UNLV is 4-0 for the first time since, I believe, 1974. So, again, a massive day for the Rebels. And a very interesting day for me because I got to check in on some of the other games as I was on assignment. But quite frankly, I didn't need to watch too much more in the second half as the story had already written itself.
Very in-depth analysis there, Brock.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, love it.
I just pulled my Mr. Jeff Barnes impression out for tonight.
Oh, listen, flattery will get you everywhere, my friend. So, Greg, I know you got a chance to peek in at some of that. Listen, how did you feel about that game?
UNLV just destroyed Fresno State. I mean, they just absolutely hammered them. Like Brock said, the 4 interceptions was. I mean, this game was over in the first quarter. I mean, it was over, done. UNLV, like Brock said, they came out and played football, and that's their bottom line. And they are the number 1 team, as far as I'm concerned, in the non-Power 4 in the country. They are the number 1 team to get that playoff spot, and deservedly so.
Yeah, and Greg, just before we move on, I just want to add one more little tidbit for all the folks watching at home. Fresno State entered this game at 3-1. Their only loss was an opening day loss to Michigan in Ann Arbor. So this was not a bad Fresno State team by any means. They have a very good quarterback in Mikey King, some really good playmakers, and that they were still dominated. That just shows how good of a team UNLV is and how well coached they are by Barry Odom and company.
Yeah, Fresno State's a very good program. People don't really respect it as much as they should. They give a lot of people a hard time. Uh, Unfortunately, today it wasn't UNLV. Those guys came out with something to prove today. As the Michael Jordan gif that goes around the internet says, I took that personally. Well, they did. Okay. They wanted to prove that, hey, it wasn't just their quarterback. We're a darn good program, and we're going to show everybody today. And they showed Fresno State in a big way. Some of the other games, um, let's talk about TCU Kansas. I know it's not the flex matchup that people thought it would be coming to this season, but TCU desperately needed to get their season going downhill with some momentum. One of the ways to do it was to go out there and beat Kansas, and Kansas hung tough. This wasn't a blowout of any sorts. Kansas didn't go away easily like people thought they would if they jumped on them early. 38-27, pretty tight game till the end. Overall, I would say a solid win for TCU. With some of the stuff that we've had, we saw Sonny Dykes leaving the field last week, getting kicked out of the game, riled up, all pissed off with how that game was going. They needed to bounce back in a big way today. So far, this was a very big way. They needed this. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't dominating, but it was effective. It was a good win.
Yeah, Jeff, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that there was two storylines going on, and those two storylines revolved around the offense coordinator. Those are two guys that are still trying to establish their identities with this team. And while TCU may be headed in an upwards trajectory at the moment, there's still some massive concerns about that program. And quite frankly, I'd be surprised if Dykes was there past this season, if not past next season. I think mentally he's kind of checked out already. And at least that's the way I feel. But the point I want to make more is about Kansas. I believe Jeff Grimes is their offensive coordinator, the old OC at Baylor. And though he got a lot of praise for his work at Zach Wilson at BYU in his first year at Baylor when they went on to win the Sugar Bowl, he's been absolutely performing below average these past couple of seasons. Being brought in this year is supposed to revitalize this Kansas offense as their offensive coordinator went to Penn State. And obviously we see what's happening with Penn State right now. But the point is that Jalen Daniels looks a shell of himself. He does not look like a confident passer at all. I mean, 36 attempts, only 15 completions. I think he only had like 60 or 40 yards passing in the first half. This Kansas team is in a world of hurt. And the fact they don't even play at a home stadium, I mean, it just keeps piling on. I just feel bad for Jayhawks fans for enduring as much pain as they have for basically as long as Kansas football has existed, and finally having some success again and having it all ripped away so quickly. Their only win is against an FCS team who wasn't even that good to begin with, and they didn't even play that great in that game as well. It's all going back to the Jayhawks, and light pole needs to make a move soon because it's falling apart quickly.
Greg?
I want to go to the Kansas State beating up on Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy, you should be gone. You should be out of there. History. Mike Gundy, I don't care that you're a 57-year-old man now. You are a bad coach. Period. You are done. You should be gone. Kansas State, by the way, they get Colorado next week, and Colorado is going to be in for a dogfight next week with Kansas State.
Yeah, they got dog walked today. Listen, there was no doubt about it. They got spanked. That was one of the games that was on in the press box as we were getting ready, and I just kept peeking back and just watching the scoreboard go crazy in Kansas State's favor. It just was not pretty. And
they gave away that game to BYU last week. It was all stuff that was fixable though, and they came out and they showed that they put in the work this week because they just came out and stomped on the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm at a loss for words seeing how this is the Oklahoma State team virtually, because they didn't lose a ton of guys to graduation. Nope. that won the Big 12 last year. They went out there, not won the Big 12, but went to the Big 12 championship last year.
Yep.
So to get smoked this bad by K-State, I mean, absolutely drilled. It like I said, it was only close for about 5 minutes. It got out of hand early. And like I said, I kept turning around, scoreboard just going up and up and up. I said, Jesus, Mike Gundy's got to be losing hair in that mullet by now. I mean, there's got to be some Rogaine to kind of keep filling that thing in the way he's getting beat today. So, yeah, I don't know what to say about it, guys. It was just a rough loss for Kansas State. I just seeing it was that bad that it leaves me I'm rarely at a loss for words when it comes to analysis. There was no way to describe Oklahoma State other than just straight bad today. There was no other way to describe it. It just was bad.
Jeff, I actually want to disagree with you for a second. There is another way to describe it, and it's the essence of Mike Gundy coaching teams. This is exactly what he does every single year that I watch college football since I've been alive. They have critical games that they have an opportunity to win, where people are not fully doubting them. And you know what happens? They shut the bucket. They did it last year. They did it the year before. They've done it every year since Mike Gundy has been a head coach at Oklahoma State. That's exactly what they do. That's exactly who they are. I've written about it here at Team MBS Media, and I'll say it again. If Oklahoma State has any ambitions about competing for a legitimate national championship, the Gundy train has to end. But they're never going to do it because they like to be in this little bubble. They like to be nice and safe. They'll take the little 8-win, 9-win seasons. Maybe they'll have a little upset of bowl game. Maybe they'll win a New Year's Six bowl game every decade, right? And that's exactly what they feel comfortable with. And Cowboys fans are comfortable with. And if that's so, then you shouldn't be upset about today. But when you have a guy like Avery Johnson, who has been criticized by the masses, including his very own fans in Manhattan, go 19 for 31, 259 passing, 3 touchdowns in the air. When you have DJ Giddens rushing for almost 200 yards on you, you might have to start to ask yourselves, what's the problem? But you know the problem. You don't want to address it. So you sweep it under the carpet, and it bubbles up every single year. But just because you get to go to a Big 12 championship game every other couple of years, even though you lose in it every single time, you think that's good for me. That's the status quo. That's where we're at. Oklahoma State, you have too good of a roster. You have too many talented players, especially on offense, to only be putting up 20 points a game. You got some really good defenders, Nick Martin to be in particular, to be allowing 42 points put up against you. Absolutely unacceptable. Their defense has gotten steamrolled time and time again this season. And you know what? They're just going to accept it because that's who the Oklahoma State Cowboys are.
So we're going to jump off that train real quick because anybody that watched the Full Monty Sports Show last night, we talked about Ole Miss and Kentucky. And I said, don't think that Ole Miss is going to run roughshod through everybody, especially Kentucky. Kentucky's a tough out. You think that's going to happen? Kentucky is a surprise for you. They gave a fight and a half to Georgia last week. Georgia barely made it out of that game. So don't be surprised. Lo and behold, who knocks off Ole Miss today?
Kentucky Wildcat.
You hate to see it, but you love to see it, right? You love to see when teams like that everybody's counting out, they start to lose faith in, right? Goes out there and beats the team that they weren't supposed to beat, right? So everybody's out there, they're feeling Ole Miss. Kentucky is a tough out. Yes, they're a basketball school, but football-wise, they have been a tough out for 10 years now.
Okay. And they went down to Jackson to do this. They went to Jackson,
they went to
Mississippi, and beat them at home.
Yes, they did not do this at their own house. They didn't do it at a neutral site. They went to Ole Miss and they beat them in their house. And not on a fluke play. There was no magic field goal that they caught and ran back. And no. There was no onside kick that they scooped up and ran. No. They straight beat them. Okay, if this was wrestling, this would be a clean pin. 1, 2, 3. Right? Plain and simple. Give credit to Kentucky. They are a very good program. Okay, they're not flashy. They don't get a lot of stud, first round talents, but they come out there consistently with very good players. They play tough defense. They're a gritty offense that finds ways to put up points. And guess what? They win ball games against some tough opponents. And they did just that to Ole Miss.
Listen, if you woke up this morning as a frat boy at Ole Miss and thought your night was going to be great, make sure that you guys have a better kicker before you have visions of grandeur for your evening. What made me love this loss so much was the faces of all the frat boys and the sorority girls just in astonishment that their dear Ole Miss Rebels could lose to Kentucky Wildcats. But the moral of the story is Jackson Dart was not on his game today. The only reason that they had a shot was because Keaton Priestcorn is a massive dude and was able to pluck a ball out of the sky at the end. But when it was time to make critical plays, guess who does it? The physical team, the team that's well coached, the team that understands that players are much more than their NIL value and stars, and that's the Kentucky Wildcats. They played Georgia close when they played. They won for a reason. And hey, I don't want to upset anybody, but I just want to throw this out there. If Ole Miss loses another game, considering they're in the same, arena as a bunch of other top contenders, that could potentially put them out of the college football playoff, which means it could give a team like Florida ample opportunity to pluck a guy like Lane Kiffin and have him be available for when the transfer portal opens and when signing day happens. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but for all those that had Lane guaranteed to stay at Oxford, that guarantee just went away, just like your probability to make the college football playoffs, and I could not be any more happier about it.
Greg.
Lane Kiffin is another guy that I just can't stomach. The guy, he just comes off like he's such a pretty boy out there, right? And he's not. He's not a pretty boy. He's not a coach that is capable of winning the big game. He never has been, and he never will be. Bottom line, goodbye, Lane. I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy Gainesville because that's a mess and a half. But yeah, you enjoy Gainesville. Yeah, that's the bottom line for me.
So earlier today, I'm looking at one of the early scores, and Baylor was winning pretty handily. Not so fast, my friend. Not so fast, because BYU comes back 34-28 to win that game. So this is why I love college football, because unlike a lot of times in the NFL, when somebody's getting their butt kicked for 2.5 quarters, it's usually over in the second half, right? They usually don't make too many of these comebacks. College football is a different animal.
Yes, it is.
A lot of inexperience on defense for a lot of these teams. The offenses are wide open, so they do score a lot. So when they get hot, they get real hot. It's a different animal. And when you've seen it so many times today, you see a team that's winning. Wisconsin loses today. Wisconsin was up 21-10. Okay. So there are certain times when you look at college scores and you go, whoa. In the NFL, you would look at that and go, uh-oh. But you look at whoa. And before you know it, you come back later on and go, okay, that turned out differently than it was looking earlier. You can't rule out a college game. I was at today. I was at the HBCU game today. If you weren't looking at Twitter, as I still call it, I don't call it X. Regardless what the owner of that company says about it, I could still call it Twitter. Nevertheless, that game was 26-7. Okay. Final score of that game, 26-21. Okay. And that team that was trailing Bethune-Cookman, the home team, had the ball with 2 minutes left in that game. So college football is a different animal than the NFL. Yes, we saw the Dallas Cowboy game against Baltimore last Sunday where they were trailing in that game by 28, came back and lost by 3. Yes, that happens on occasion. It does happen. Usually it's like the New Orleans game. They were getting their butt kicked all game. They got their butt kicked all game. That's usually how the NFL is. It doesn't always end up in a big comeback. Sometimes it does. But college, it happens a lot more frequently. So to see a lot of these scores where you see a team on the losing end of the stick who was winning pretty big at one point during the game is something that's quite commonplace in today's college football game. Not so much 20, 30 years ago where you had teams that were grinding out clock on people and, really putting them in the ground. With this new day and age of the spread, where you're able to throw the ball over the field to these air raid offenses, it's a lot easier for teams to come back than it was in the past.
Jeff, just don't mean to interrupt. Just want to add to your narrative. Texas State was up 22-0 at the end of the first quarter today against San Jose State. They lost 40-39.
40-39. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
We couldn't make the point any more clear. You never know. You
never know.
you got to keep watching for four quarters in college football. Trust me, the people that started leaving when it was 26-7 where I was at were probably like, oh shoot, they came back. Yes, they came back. Okay, anything can happen in college football.
And the Penn State Nittany Lions just beat Illinois 21-7 final.
Well, I know an Illinois guy that's not going to be happy with that score, but listen, I know I know a lot of. Listen, I have family that went to Penn State, so as I call it, State Penn. I just like messing with them. I really do, but I have no.
Not me now. Not me now. See, the Penn State hoodie's on. It's on tonight.
I just want to add to you, Greg. If Penn State was serious about competing for national championships, the coach on the opposing sideline will be better suited to get them to that level than the coach that Penn State has now.
Hey, James Franklin. Hey, Franklin has another victory under his belt. That's all that matters. Courtney was at the game tonight. It's a whiteout game for them, so it's a beautiful thing to see. Happy Valley is going to be a happy place tonight.
So, Michigan wins by 3. Here's another one of those games we were talking about, right? You talk about a game where a team is up big and sneak. This time they sneak out of there with their tails intact, but not by much. Okay, Michigan was up 21-0 in this game.
Yep.
All right. So
and they got very lucky with the calls in this game. They got very lucky. So that school up north. Yeah, you got your little brown jug for this year again. That's all fine and dandy, but it was very close.
Controversial onside kick call that was called offsides. Just want to throw that little tidbit in there.
That's
what I was talking about. Was the
controversial calls have been the thing this weekend. Let's talk about the Miami game. Controversial call at the end of that one that people thought it went a different way. Yeah. I think they got it right. It was an incomplete pass. He didn't have full control when he was fighting over it with simultaneous possession. Not to mention the guy he's fighting over the ball with is lying out of bounds, so that kind of makes it out of bounds. So it's an incomplete pass. So there's no. I know people were saying they kind of got hosed on that. No, they got it right. It was an incomplete pass. As much as we would have loved the drama to see a Hail Mary in that situation, trust me, Mario Cristobal went home and had some rum after that game because you can't keep eking out these wins. Listen, I was in the house when they played USF last week, and yes, the scoreboard was a big advantage at the end, but at halftime, you talk about a team happy to have a lead, and they were supposed to do what they did to USF at the end of that game all game long. Right, they came out there thinking they were going to dog walk USF, and they came out and did some highly disrespectful stuff at the beginning of that game. It just so happened when they came out, USF comes out because the home team always comes out first. USF always goes to the end zone, acknowledges their student body, and then they do a little prayer and they come out the end zone while their band is playing in the middle of the field. Greg will probably pop back in. He probably got bumped off for a second. But at one point, Miami got tired of waiting. So they let their team run out while USF was still coming out. And some of their guys decided to not only come out, but come out through USF's lines, their cheerleaders and band. All right, so and they weren't like running through; they were jumping through and staying and talking and doing the Miami thing. Okay, so when that happened, people were like, "Whoa!" Any other team that would have been a fight? I said, "Yeah, well, USF isn't built that way. They're not gangster like that. They're gonna start a fight in the pregame over that." But I know certain other teams would. But there's a reason why when they play Notre Dame, they call it the Catholics and the Convicts. Because it's not because they're actual convicts, although back then they probably had a few when Michael Irvin and them were there. But it was a different team mentality. Okay, so it was literally, hey, we're going to do some disrespectful stuff to you. All right, so Miami was just built different, and they still have a little of that in them. So to see them come out again today, well, yesterday. and once again get into a dogfight where they were losing most of that game. Virginia Tech gave them everything they could handle, and they somehow snuck out of that. All right, Miami twice, 2 weeks in a row, has been given a scare of their life because when USF went up on them at home last week, they showed the face of the safety on the screen, and you could tell by the body language they were sitting there looking like, "What just hit us? This team ain't supposed to be balling with us." Yeah, nobody's scared of Miami anymore, and that's the thing about it. You have to go out there and play hard every week. And if you're dominating, you got to stay on somebody for 4 quarters. You can't let up. And what you're seeing from Miami is they think that we're Miami. Somebody's afraid of us. It don't matter how much you act tough. This day and age with college football, most of these kids don't care about the 80s Miami Hurricanes, the early 2000 Miami. Half these kids that are playing now weren't even born. So that stuff is gone. They know the last 10 years of Miami Hurricanes. They ain't afraid of that. So if you think because you're the U that you're just going to intimidate people in the wins, it don't work that way no more. That mystique is gone. So they've been in some close games for that reason. It's not done. They got some tough ones ahead. Moving on. How about this one? Louisiana Lafayette, right? The Raging Cajuns go out there and knock off Wake Forest by 3.
Yep. It's another game that the favored team just didn't get the job done today. That's the bottom line. I mean,
yeah,
there's nothing more to it. I mean, to lose at home, to lose at Lafayette and your Wake Forest, I mean, what more can you say? Not only that, you allowed them to put 41 points on you.
But listen, Louisiana Lafayette came out there with something to prove.
Yes.
All right. They're not afraid of Wake. Once again, they're not afraid of Wake Forest. Yes, they're SEC, but not everybody's afraid of every SEC team that they face. So I think that's one of the things that we are seeing is when you look at some of these scores, but back 10 years ago, they may have been nervous to play the bit almighty SEC, even if it's the lower tier of the SEC. They ain't afraid of Wake Forest no more, man. I'm starting to get used to this younger generation of we don't care who you are, man. We're gonna hit you in the face, and that's what you're getting from these programs. I like it though. It makes the game a lot more interesting when they don't care about all that prestige. We're going to hit you in the mouth. We're coming in here for a victory. End of story. All right.
And Jeff, I just want to add something to your point. It is definitely a mindset with the younger generation, but at the same time, you look at all these teams, these Power 5 conferences, and we're always talking about the transfer portal, right? Well, they're plucking players from conferences like Louisiana Lafayette. These players who played them last year remember what they were like, and they weren't intimidated when they played them then. So what do you think is going to change just because they changed the jersey? Nothing. So just throwing that out there.
So Greg, I'm going to rub this in a little on you. Don't be upset about it. So NC State did what Notre Dame couldn't do. They beat Northern Illinois.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah. Don't get me started.
Listen, be happy they won, right? Listen, Notre Dame gets the win today. That was a nice segue. You like that? Notre Dame gets the win today at home versus Louisville. And it was a close battle. They had to fight for that one. Like I said, Louisville wasn't no chump. They ain't coming in there and kissing the feet of touchdown Jesus. They're coming in there to take that. They're going to come in there to take Notre Dame's money, and they took it. They left with the L, but they took the money Notre Dame gave them for coming in there.
There is a rule change that needs to occur in the NCAA, and it's this nonsense over the injuries. Louisville had at least 5 guys go down for one play, then they were off for the field for one play and back in the game, all in the second half. It was just ridiculous, the number of quote unquote injuries that Louisville had out there. That is something that is pathetic. and that's done by the coaches.
So
That's done by coaches.
Yes.
you guys earlier in the season were kicking this guy in the teeth. He's done. He's, his time has passed. It's time to move on. Look now, but Clemson is number 17. Clemson has won again, beating a rebuilding Stanford program 40-14.
Yeah. So who is Clemson actually Clemson actually played against this year outside of their first game? Absolutely nobody.
I listen. They're ranking them. That's all that matters. They're ranking them.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. They are ranking them. They're going to be, if they keep winning, they're going to be in the playoff.
See, this is why I keep saying Miami has to win the ACC, because I can't stand Clemson. I just can't stand Dabo Swinney. I'm not a Cristobal fan either. But if Miami stays unbeaten and takes the ACC title, that's fine by me this year. That's my feelings, and I just can't stomach Dabo Swinney.
Unfortunately for you, Miami is catching an L next week when they travel all the way to Berkeley to face the Cal Golden Bears. Noel Williams, Craig Woodson. You want to see some good DB play? They're going to show Miami what good DBs play like. I'll tell you that right now.
Yep. And Ott will be running wild as well.
Oh, I hope so. So Mendoza puts on the charm we saw last year.
That's going to be a very hard game for Miami.
We're over a half hour in, guys.
Wow.
We got a lot more to go. So everybody hang tight. Get your little bit of sip of something. We will. We'll be right back with more of The Last Word right after this.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build the cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gulf Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. # built for the wild.
What head coach or coordinator does Brock want to fire now? Jeff will settle him down, trust me. Grab a snack and another drink. Let's get back to The Last Word. The show for the... No, Greg. Notre Dame isn't the greatest school ever. You have to try at least and be biased. Another crazy college football Saturday is in the books. So let's get back to the show and discuss it all. Thanks for tuning in. The Last Word, a show for the real college football fan.
Listen, relax, guys. Touchdown, Jesus is safe. He's safe. They won.
That's right.
I couldn't guarantee that if they lost. They may have lost their religion today if they would have lost the Louisville in South Bend, but they pulled it up.
I'll tell you, Notre Dame is going to lose to either Army or Navy at this point. Army, unbeaten. Navy, unbeaten. Both those schools are on Notre Dame's schedule this year, and the way that Notre Dame is playing offensively, Riley Leonard, you gotta go. Steve Angeli needs to be the quarterback for the Fighting Irish. I'm sorry, but Riley Leonard, you have been awful. awful throwing the football today. Okay, yes, he had the big wide open pass to the receiver in the end zone, and he hit Jeremiah Love on a nice 33-yard pass on a screenplay here earlier. But oh my God, Riley Leonard, you have fallen off the chart ever since you hurt yourself playing Notre Dame last year. You really have fallen off the world.
Well, we know who Greg's going after today.
No.
That's evident.
I've got a whole list. I've got a laundry list today.
Well, we're going to go through that list, but first, we touched on this game earlier. It's time to really deep dive into this one. And there it is. Colorado going into Orlando, the underdog, by the way, 14-point underdogs. And if you didn't know who Travis Hunter was, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. Okay, Travis Hunter showed you again why he is one of, if not the top athletes, one of the top 3 athletes in college football. 48-21. Colorado left, no doubt. So, guys, what did y'all think about this matchup?
Colorado came out and ran the fan football, and that scared the hell out of all the fans who were watching this game early on. And then Shedeur Sanders did what he had to do. He got the 3 passing touchdowns, one, of course, to Travis Hunter, and Hunter had the pick off, as you show here on the screen. Yes, Travis Hunter is a very good football player, but he is not the number 1 player in the college game. I'm sorry. He's just not. I don't care that he plays wide receiver and cornerback. He is not the number 1 guy. He's a very good football player, but he's not my number 1 player.
Brock?
Yeah, I was not surprised per se. I was just more impressed with the consistency of Colorado on both sides of the football. I felt that a lot of the issues that I had for them, they aren't fixed by any means, but they're a lot closer to being resolved than they were a week ago. I think not only the fact that they won against Baylor, but the way that they won was not only a wake-up call for them, but a massive confidence booster. We always heard the rhetoric coming into the season that Colorado would not be able to survive play in conference. And, well, guess what? They're, 2-0 in conference play right now? So, they're always, they always have to hear all this negativity. I'm sure it was a big day for them to be able to shut some people up. Very interesting. Social media is quite silent about Colorado's victory. Had I only kept up with the game via social media, I would even have known Colorado had played. So I think that was a big win for the Buffaloes. But on the opposite side for UCF, you got to be extremely disappointed if you're the Knights. Not only did you lose, but the way that you lost. And you are finally realizing a fact that I have known for years now. KJ Jefferson is not a good quarterback. I don't understand where that rhetoric was that he is good. He just needs to be in the right situation. I'll tell you what's the right situation for him. Put him in against high school opponents. Then he'll lay up the scoreboard. But if you want him to compete at the highest level and you want him to produce consistently, well, you have a better chance of becoming the king of England at that point. Because it's not going to happen. And it's definitely not going to happen under Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn is a somewhat more successful version of Mike Gundy. They win a lot of their games, but they lose the big ones. And hey, you got an opportunity to go season 4-0, I believe 2-0 in conference play at home in the bounce house, and you don't. Well, it's what you guys do, and it's what UCF is going to have to live with as long as they employ him.
I'm going to tell you what, I thought this game would have been tighter because we know how inconsistent Colorado's offense could be. We know how inconsistent their defense could be, especially against the run. What does UCF like to do? Run the football. And I was shocked to see how easily they moved down the field on UCF's defense. And I was really shocked to see them running the football. When Harvey had that big 75-yard TD catch early in the game, I was like, okay, that's the Colorado defense I was worried about. And then after that, they got shut down. They got shut down for a while. And they started coming back and making it close. But at the end of the day, it was just too much of Colorado's offense. Shador had a good game, not a great game, but he had a really good game. But you talk about Colorado going into the bounce house and running for 128 yards as a team. Okay. Now, not one individual rusher stood out. Maybe Isaiah Augustov had 4 carries for 39 yards. But when you look at it, they spread it out over several different runners. Shador Sanders, of course, scrambled and made some plays. But 29 carries, 128 yards, 4.4 yards a carry, and 2 TDs for a Colorado team that, when you watch them the first couple of games of the season, struggled to run the football. Okay, their running game was not existent and they lost to Nebraska. Okay, even versus North Dakota State, they didn't have an effective running game. Somehow, some way, the last 2 weeks, they have found a way to score.
They changed the guys on their offensive line, and that has been what has worked for them, because the guard is actually pulling on plays now, and it's you can actually do this in college football. Yes, you can. Yeah.
If you're playing the drinking game like they are in Tallahassee right now, the score is SMU 42, Florida State 16 in the fourth quarter. It's another ugly one up there in well, this is actually over in Dallas, it's SMU. But yes.
Yes, keep an eye on.
Yes, well, 33-28. Yeah.
Nope.
Well, they haven't posted. They just changed it now.
Yeah.
Yes, Georgia took the lead. Yes, 34-36.
So this was 30-7 at halftime for Alabama. So,
what did we just talk about? What did we just talk about?
What did we say?
What did we just talk about? All right. So, but let's talk. We were talking about this last night. People want to know, is Caleb DeBoer a top 10 college football coach right now? I said he's trending that way. I don't think he's there yet, because, plain and simple, the body of work is not very big. Short time at Fresno State, short time at Washington, and he just got to Bama. So I think give him a little more time, 2 or 3 more years at Bama. If he continues to do what he's doing, yes, he's definitely top 10, possibly even top 3 or top 5. But right now, he's in danger of taking his first loss at home to Georgia when you had a big lead. That's not going to sit well if they lose this game. Oh boy, they're going to be unhappy.
It was 28-0 for the Roll Tide, and
Jeff, I just want to. Oh, sorry. Continue.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say they're going to be very unhappy if Bama loses this game.
Kind of froze. Absolutely, and that's bring up a great point about Kevin DeBoer. If he's a top 10 coach, I thought he should have went for it in the 4-1 situation that preceded that. Even though they were on the own side of, they're on their own territory, I thought that defensively you are on the back's heel right now, and you need something to change momentum. You convert a 4-1, you change that, and if you don't, you're gonna get Georgia a short field anyway, and they need a touchdown anyway. So it's not that they're gonna try and milk the clock to go and get it. By doing what they did, not only did they surrender the lead, they surrendered the possibility of not even giving Georgia the ball back. I think it was a very bad move by them, and it kind of shows the mindset of Caleb DeBoer so far. A mindset that needs to change immediately if Alabama wants to have a shot this game and this season.
Well, we're getting to that point of the show, so it is that time for the statement. Brock, who do you believe made a statement today in college football?
Well, I would just go with the guy who just made a statement right now, Ryan Williams. He just scored a 75-yard touchdown, snatched that ball from the sky, made 2 Georgia defenders look absolutely silly. Incredible. But I'm not going to signify one person. I'm going to signify the young wide receivers in college football right now. Himself, Smith, and a whole bunch of other phenomenal pass catchers are making a name for themselves early. And even though I'm always on the negative side of things, I always want to fire people. Today, I'm in a good mood, so I want to praise these young athletes for not only being so successful at such a young age in this very, very tough game, but also having the mental toughness, the matureness, the physical ability to be able to put in that work, that time, that effort, the concentration, going all the way back to the middle school days, and to be able to put that all together so they can jump out and be successful early in college football. I think that the young wide receivers of college football are going to perpetuate the game to levels we have yet to see, and I cannot be more excited for them, and I am totally enjoying the ride that I am on as not only a commentator, as an analyst, as a writer, but just as a plain fan. What these kids are putting together is a phenomenal body of work, and I just want to give them their flowers because, oh my goodness, not only do they make plays, they make phenomenal, mind-blowing plays, and they do so with grace, with aggressiveness, with humility, and also with a little bit of cockiness. It's the right amount, and those are the types of players that we're going to see come out and become coaches in the next era, and they're going to be the leaders of tomorrow by making plays today, built out the foundation and structure done yesterday. So shout out to all the young wide receivers making plays in college football right now, just like Mr. Ryan Williams and the rest of the crew.
Greg, who do you believe made a statement today?
I'm gonna pretty much agree with what Brock had to say about the wide receivers. That's pretty much the boys who did the number today. Although Mr. Gentry, the running back for Boise State, already had a 64-yard touchdown against Washington State. He is the number one running back in the country. That is my bottom line there. But yeah, I definitely agree that the wide receivers have played such a huge role this year. The young wide receivers as well. These kids are not going to be drafted this year. But what you just saw Williams do to Georgia there was just phenomenal. Yeah, the wide receivers are definitely making their mark.
Okay, well, time for me to make mine, and I'm going to say it like this: Indiana's 5-0. And if you didn't hear me the first time, I'm going to say it again. Indiana is 5-0 with the win today at home versus Maryland, a tough Maryland program. Everybody talks about Maryland. They're a rising program. Okay, beat them at home, 5-0. Okay, when's the last time we've talked about the Hoosiers like this when it comes to football? It's been a very long time.
Yep.
Okay, this program is rising. This program's rising.
Outside 2020.
And even then, it was like, okay, they had that 1 year with COVID, and people went, okay. Then what had happened? They went right backwards the next year, right? So, but that was also the same year Michigan was dreadful, and it turned around. That was an anomaly too. So, but yes, okay.
That was my favorite year for that school up north.
This team has found a way to win games. This team is playing great football. This is what they have not had consistently for a very long time. And I started to see this slowly coming last year. They will put some games together. You go, okay, they'll play some teams and they will lose some tough games last year. You go, this team is starting to build something. They've come out the gates 5-0 this year. Okay. Listen, one more win in the last, 7 games of this season, and they're bowl eligible. They go to a bowl, right? So, but nevertheless, I think they're thinking beyond more than that now. Okay, they're 5-0. They're trying to sneak their way into a Big Ten championship conversation. Now, it may not happen, but guess what? This team could easily end up 8, 9, 10 wins. When is the last time we said that about an Indiana program, a football team? Right? This is we talk about basketball schools. Indiana has been a basketball school for the past 40 years. Okay, right? We haven't talked about Indiana football as a powerhouse. I can't count the last time we did. Okay, and I'm knocking on that big 5-0. All right, so in my 40 plus years of conscious college football fandom, I can honestly say I don't remember Indiana being that school that people were afraid of. They're starting to build into a respectable program with winning, and if they keep this up and start beating some of those upper echelon teams in the Big Ten, guess what? They're going to be a powerhouse, folks. So kudos to Indiana. They are now on the radar. People are watching. So I think now, if they continue this way, I think the sky's the limit for this program. But they made a statement today, not only beating Maryland, but saying, hey, 5-0. We ain't ready to lay down for anybody. Okay, so kudos to Indiana. So we have the ticker going. Just to check in on the late games real quick. As we're seeing 41-34 now, Bama on top. Still SMU all over Florida State. That's not going to change, folks. There's some games that you go, ooh, they're coming back. It ain't happening with Florida State. No. It ain't happening. Okay, you can leave that. It is safe to leave that game if you're a Florida State fan. Go to a hotel, get sloshed, and get ready for your flight tomorrow. It's over. Okay. Natty, Texas Tech holding on to a 10-point lead in that one. That one's been a high-scoring affair. New Mexico State, another high-scoring affair. New Mexico leading that one 43-33 with a minute 54. Looks like they're going to eke that one out. Boise State, Washington State tied at 10. Another team that people kind of ignore, yeah. They had their miracle win over Oklahoma all those years ago. Boise State's a tough out, folks. They're not laying down for Washington State. They're going to bring the fight to them. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Utah trailing out unranked Arizona 3-0 in the second. Okay. Utah, not a high scoring team. They better wake up, or else. UCLA trailing Oregon 7-0. How about, and that was still early in the first, because plain and simple, those are two teams that don't really huddle. So you're going to get a lot of time on the clock in that game. That's going to be like a 2:00 in the morning game. And that pretty much does it for the late window of games, guys. So looking forward to next week. Some big.
No, not yet. No, I'm not looking forward to next week yet. I'm going to talk about the stupid morons at NBC Sports.
Oh,
and their absolutely ridiculous coverage of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It was bad enough they had that junior punk Flutie from that junior college, Boston College, calling their games. Now they got Jason Garrett, who 9.5 years of torture of being the Cowboys head coach was bad enough for me, but to listen to this clown not understand the college football game is just disgusting. And why this game was on Peacock is beyond me as well. I don't understand this, because the President's Cup is a joke of a golf tournament anyway. And you've got the Golf Channel as it is, so you didn't need to put this game on Peacock, folks. And you do not need those idiots calling these games for the Fighting Irish. I want Joe Montana, Tim Brown, Rick Meyer. I don't care who it is. I want somebody who understands what being from Notre Dame is, covering the Notre Dame game. This is ridiculous. Jason Garrett had no idea of the double pass interference call. He has no clue what a blindside hit is. He's just clueless, absolutely clueless, and it is just pathetic. And Marcus Freeman, you have to go as well. You called 3 straight plays tonight for Riley Leonard at the end of the game to run the football. Running the football from your quarterback. No. Hello, you've got Mitchell Evans, a tight end. Find the guy. You've got players who can catch the football.
As Cowboys fans, should you be surprised Jason Garrett doesn't know what he's talking about?
No. And that's what drives me nuts about this whole NBC coverage. It was bad enough they had the Boston College junior Catholic school guy, Doug Flutie, calling games. Now you got Jason Bloody Garrett. It is just pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Like I said, I want somebody who understands Notre Dame.
Greg, I'm confused here, because it's been a long time since, and I'm a Notre Dame guy. I grew up watching Notre Dame games all the time. That was my school that I loved, besides Grambling. But when I talk about it, I think back, it's been a while since they've had broadcasters I think Mayock was pretty good as a color guy. But other than that, there was some really sketchy guys they had there. You know, the guy that we don't really see eye to eye with, Chris Collinsworth, was on there, and you know, we talk about that one.
And then his dumb kid was the play-by-play guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, yeah, there's nepotism in broadcasting too. Yes, we know that. Yeah, but you know, but you know, I mean, this has kind of been a thing for Notre Dame football when it comes to coverage. They just throw a face on there that people know, and they don't really care if the guy knows, you know, he's saying the right thing. But to be honest with you, some of these guys, when they get older, don't know what they're saying. There are Hall of Famers I hear calling games. I'm saying
the Dallas Cowboys fan for 9.5 years suffering from that clown being on the sideline for the Dallas Cowboys. He was the last clown I ever wanted to see covering the Notre Dame football games. So, yeah, as Julio says here, yes, I hate the clapper. I despise this guy, and he's bad at covering football games. He's bad at it.
How is he at covering football games, Ray?
He's bad. Very bad.
Greg does not like Jason Garrett.
Exactly.
There you go.
Greg might have a little problem with Jason Garrett.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Okay, so getting off of Greg's bad side, let's get back to next week's games. Looking forward to some of these matchups. Tennessee, Arkansas next week in Arkansas.
Arkansas will lose again, so okay, carry on.
Rocky Top.
Yeah.
Oh, say home to me.
So Michigan goes to Washington. A big matchup there. Big Ten.
That
new
school
Big Ten rivalry.
That school up north is going to beat the hell out of Washington. Rutgers beat them last night, and it was horrifying to watch.
What if I told you Rutgers is a better team than Michigan?
I believe you.
And also, Michigan has trouble playing on the West Coast, so I'm actually taking the Huskies in that one.
No, it's going to be up north. It's not in California. It's not the Rose Bowl. It's not going to be. It's going to probably be cold and wet and.
Yeah, and with a time difference too, the body needs to adjust a little bit. College football teams is not the NFL; they fly out different times.
Okay, Brock, I believe you. Washington beats that school up north. I love it.
Oh, for the first time in a couple of years, agree with me, brother. Agree with me against Michigan.
So, as much as y'all want Dabo to go, he's got Florida State next week, guys. So I don't plan on Clemson losing next week. So we'll be probably talking about another Clemson win. Are you guys going to be all right next week?
Mike Norvell, you son of a. You better have your team ready to play. You better have them ready. Oh, okay. I'm dreaming again.
Okay. All right.
Dabo, it will always be successful in the ACC. When he fell off the year that he did, he still won the conference or won 9 games, something like that in the conference. So Dabo will always be successful in the ACC. Question for Clemson is, do they want to win ACC championships or national ones? That's where the Dabo conversation changes.
Okay, so we're going to go from the $35 seats now to the VIP suites because we have 4-0 Rutgers traveling to 4-1 Nebraska.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Rutgers beats them. Rutgers beats them because that defense is just that damn good at Rutgers.
Could not agree more. I actually have a bet with a good friend of Team NBS Media, Mr. Donovan James. Next time he comes up to Vegas. The first round of drinks is on the winner of the Nebraska-Rutgers game. I have Rutgers. He took Nebraska, and because of that, let's go Scarlet Knights. A sleeper for the College Football Playoff. I don't believe they play Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan this year either.
No, they don't.
3-1 SMU at 3-1 Louisville. Well, it could be 4-1. It should be 4-1 after tonight. SMU at 3-1 Louisville.
And as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that SMU is a pretty damn good football team.
And before tonight, I'm pretty sure they will after tonight. They are not ranked right now.
No, they're not.
So, yeah.
Jeff, I don't mean to interrupt you. Just want to give an update to everyone that's watching. Alabama just intercepted Carson Beck in the end zone. Georgia has only 2 timeouts left, 43 seconds, so the game is essentially over. Alabama game-winning interception in the end zone for the Crimson Tide.
Thank you for the update. Thank you for the update.
Tide.
I can't wait till we get to draft season and we start talking about the Carson Becks and all those guys. If it's just time to come out, we'll see. So there's been a lot of talk about him since the spring, and let's just say I haven't been one of those guys carrying his banner out the tunnel.
Did you not listen to what I've said about all these quarterbacks this year? Did you not listen to me? There's none of them worth being taken in the first round, folks. There's none of them. Not Shadur Sanders. None of them. Absolutely none of these guys.
There are people probably putting my face on the meme. He's not a first round quarterback. Prove me wrong. And I've said, and I'm not saying that because he just threw the interception. I was saying that before the game. I was saying that earlier in the game, even during the comeback. He's still not a first round quarterback. All right. Anyway, Boston College goes to Virginia. Battle of 1-loss teams.
Ooh, Boston College did not look good today, but they still pulled it out at the end. I think there's something gritty about them, and I'm liking them a lot. I have the Eagles over the Cavaliers. Well, What a matchup of team names. That's a ferocious matchup. That's something you read about on a typewriter. That's a
Eagles and Hokies.
Navy gets the Air Force next week. And
Cavaliers, sorry.
The Navy with midshipmen are going to pound the Falcons of the Air Force next week.
Yes.
And Army is going to beat up on Tulsa. So they're both going to be 6-0.
What diction?
Mac Brown was handed a very bad loss recently. Will he get
another one today because they were up 10-0 and they lost 21-20?
Yeah. So will he get another one next week when undefeated Pitt comes calling?
Yes.
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah.
Narduzzi has the Panthers rolling right now. They look very, very good. It's very reminiscent of that Kenny Pickett year. And I feel bad for Brown because obviously his starting quarterback went down. But let's be real now, they probably had the same record if Max Johnson was a starter or not. As much as I hate to say it, Brown's time, it's time to go, or it's time to go to a different level of football because you are unfortunately no longer a Power 5 coach.
Mac Brown has to go. He has to.
If he's done at North Carolina, he ends up back at ESPN. You're going to see his face back at ESPN. I guarantee it.
Iowa
State goes to 5-0 next week as well because they're going to beat up on Baylor.
Yeah, Aranda's done at Baylor, but Iowa State did not look impressive today offensively against a Houston team that has been suffering. So I have a little bit of concern, but I agree. I think they get it done against the Bears as well.
Okay, so this is an in-state battle down here of teams. We just saw UCF get pretty much pummeled by Colorado, and Florida, who seems to have found a way to even their record at 2-2, gets to host the Knights. First time they've played since that bowl game where UCF beat them, where Florida fans were saying, our guys were all opted out of the bowl game. That's the only reason you won. Well, this one matters. Everybody will be there. All right, here's a guy. We talk about trying to save his job. The guy in Florida is throwing everything out there to save his job. It's like a zombie apocalypse, and the people are throwing everything in front of the door to try and keep him from getting in. That's the alumni coming for this guy's job. So you lose to UCF at home, you may not make it to the next week.
Does a rested Iowa team go to Columbus and win next week?
No.
Listen,
Caden McCown can't do anything as quarterback, but the defense is still going to come out there, and they're going to be a tough team.
They're going to outscore Iowa. Iowa's not a scoring platform.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not a scoring threat.
Yeah.
So they're going to outscore Iowa.
Greg, I want to ask you a question. I have 2 names for you: Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka. Name 2 corners at Iowa that are going to be able to stop them consistently in that game.
Neither one, and they're not going to stop Judkins or Henderson either. But I just threw Iowa's name out there because they are 3-1. I mean, come on now.
And for Billy Napier, if you lose, you better drive as fast as Mr. Jeff Barnes driving an I-4 home because the Gator faithful is coming after y'all ass if you lose to UCF. Would it be? Wait, was he the coach in that bowl game when UCF beat the poo-poo out of them like a couple years ago, or was he not yet?
Yeah, no, Malzahn was there. Yep.
No, it's not about Napier.
Oh, Napier.
I know he got hired that year, but I don't know if he coached that bowl game or not.
No,
Yeah.
I think that was him because I think Muschamp was gone already.
Yeah, Muschamp was gone.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yes, because that was the year Richardson left. Zach Richardson left. He went pro. So that was one of the reasons why they lost that game. They say because our guys were all opted out. So this one counts. There ain't nobody opted out of this one.
Well, physically, maybe not. Mentally, who knows?
All right. So with that being said, it's time to call it a night, guys. So thanks to everybody that watched. These guys once again held it down for a guy that's road weary. Have been on the road since 7-something this morning. You know, it's been a long day for me, man. When I go scouting, I go scouting. I'm out there. So yes. So guys, thanks for holding it down, man. I needed the energy boost, especially coming from Daytona back to Tampa. It takes a lot. So you guys made it a night for me. Any final thoughts before we go?
I just want to share a couple things real quick. One, I'm glad to have you back, Jeff. I had a lot of juice in the show because you were here. You know, me and Greg, we always do our thing. But whenever it's the three of us, you know, we have such differing opinions, but such a common respect for one another. That's always fun to talk ball with you gentlemen. So just want to say thank you. And I just like to leave all the fans with one final thought for tonight. In this whirlwind of college football realignment, we're starting to see there are clear fundamental issues between teams on the West Coast, Midwest, and East Coast whenever they play each other. And of course, we're always going to talk about the football side of it. But what they want to talk about is the student athlete. Washington Huskies had to fly from the state of Washington to the state of New Jersey and then back. Then they have to go through their Sunday routine with film study and practice while having to do the actual studies, take care of their home life, family life. And in some situations, they have kids, wives, things of that nature. I think that we're not as, at least the NCAA isn't, didn't consider that fact. And I just want to shout out all the student athletes that have to go through that because I know somewhat what that's like and the toll it takes on your body. And you know, all three of us, we're grinders, but they're grinding on a different level. And I just want to wish them all the best because what higher ups have done to their college life is unacceptable. And it is quite infuriating.
Greg?
I'm going to talk a little bit about what Coach Saban talked about this morning on game day. Because the NIL thing with Sluka has really annoyed me this week, as it has Brock as well. Coach Saban said that 20% of these transfer portal athletes are not graduating university since the NIL got bigger. 20%. And that's what I said last year, was this is going to affect these kids' futures because they're not going to end up graduating. And when Saban says that 20% of these kids aren't graduating university now, that is something that is disgusting. Congress needs to step in here and change this system because it's all in the players' favor right now. So if you want to see this change to where they have a level playing field for every school out there, you tell your Congress people to get their rear ends in gear on this because this is something that is needed.
Yeah, could not agree more, Greg. I just wish there was like an association, like a national association for, you know, these collegiate athletes that would have like a governing body that could set up regulations and standards for, you know, these schools and teams to follow. I wish something like that existed, but unfortunately it just doesn't exist in modern society.
Well, you know, the funny part was when this all started, when the players realized they were getting rear-ended by universities with the money, they tried to unionize, and that's what shut down the college football video games and
Yep.
all the video games for the college sports that they had out. It's just shut down a lot of jersey sales and a lot of the things that they were doing, making money that these kids couldn't get paid for because they were pocketing everything. The coaches got fat, the universities got fat, the kids got nothing. And even then they weren't graduating because they were running off to get paid in the NFL because their families were hurting. A lot of these kids don't come from money. So
Exactly.
what happens when you have a pendulum that's stuck on one side, the minute it gets released, it goes heavy the other way. NIL was only reason you have NIL the way it is because the NCAA refuses to act. Okay, the governing body that guess what doesn't govern. Right, they don't ever make a rule that doesn't that's not already basically set up for them as it is, or it's too heavy-handed and it winds up going back in their favor. Right, the NCAA refused to act on that. They didn't want nothing to do with it. We want to keep amateurism. They stayed in their 1920 ways, and guess what? You got fat off of all these kids for over a century. Okay.
Yeah, but now the NCAA is being run by Charlie Barker, who is a former Republican governor of the state of Massachusetts, and Barker is the one who has now come in and said this system needs to be changed and it needs to be done by Congress.
But here's the stupid part about it. Okay, they agreed. They agreed to NIL. Now you can't unring the bell. See, NIL is a legal term. It's a legal thing, and it was the NCAA's way of saying we're not paying these kids. They're getting paid for their name, image, and likeness, and you can't stop it no matter what. You can't regulate it. How do you regulate how much somebody gets paid for their name, image, and likeness? You can't. Okay, if they try to come up with something to stop NIL at this point, it's going to go to court, and it's going to get tossed out because you can't regulate somebody's name, image, and likeness value. We talk about we're in a capitalist society. How do you regulate how much I am worth? You can't. See, that was the stupid part of the NCAA not acting. They set themselves up to once again get kicked right in the rear end. Okay, because they like to do things their own way. We're the big bad NCAA. Now that you have no power, and even the Power 5 conferences are giving you the all right, plain and simple, the NCAA is sitting there going, well, we're going to do this. They're doing the posturing they always do. We're going to do that. This is unacceptable. What are you going to do? So the only thing you could possibly do is what they've mentioned, revenue sharing. How does that help everybody? It doesn't, because the fact of the matter is, once again, your Power 5s, and even if you still count the Pac-12, or if you want to count the American as the fifth conference, those schools make so much more money than the mid-majors in the FCS programs. How do you compete now if you're going to do revenue sharing? Those schools can't. They're barely making money off of football as it is because they have to spend so much to make it presentable. Okay, so revenue sharing ain't going to work. This is what I mean. It is so stupid. They could have done this the right way for many years. They were being greedy. They didn't want to do it. They got fat. The coaches got fat. The kids got nothing. Now the kids are getting a little something, and they're going, it's not fair. You allowed them to use what they're legally obligated to get, their name, image, and likeness. Your collectives are pumping any money into that. Guess what? You're going to outlaw the collectives? How are those big power programs going to get their kids? They're going to do it the same way they always did. Well, we'll find another under-the-table way of getting them here. Either way, the schools are still going to find a way to win. The big schools, they're going to find a way to get money into these players' pockets to get them to come there. And guess what? They're still going to get paid off for name, image, and likeness because you can't. That's one train that you can't stop. It's going to just keep going. So that's where the NCAA, being reactive and stubborn in their old ways of doing things, has set this up to the point. Yes, people are frustrated that kids now have no loyalty. Well, guess what? They have reason not to be loyal. They had no loyalty for over 100 years. They were being held and told, you can't leave or else. You can't do this or else. We've got you by the short and curlies because, plain and simple, we're the big program, and if you leave, you lose a year. If you leave, kid, you get hurt. You know what? Maybe we need that scholarship for another player. So, we better transfer and go somewhere else. That's what happened to kids. They got the shaft for a century. you know, and so I don't feel bad at all. As a former college athlete, I don't feel bad at all. Because when I was there was no such thing as NIL. We had to do what they said, or else, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and run before class. Okay, coach, because I want to play here. Otherwise, I can't play. I got to go somewhere else. Yep, that's it. You ain't got no girlfriend tonight. You're going in that dorm room at 7 o'clock. Okay, coach. Yeah, there was no arguing with Eddie Robinson or any one of those coaches when I was at Grambling. That you did what they said, or else. So, yeah, it is what it is. So these kids now, I don't like that coach. I'm out, and I ain't got to sit now.
And just to kind of jump off your point, when it comes to Eddie Robinson, respected voice in football.
Absolutely.
But who's on the other end of that same line? Tommy Tuberville.
Yes.
And yet they had the same amount of absolute power.
That's what you had.
That's what you had.
That's what you had. As much as a great mind when it came to basketball, Bobby Knight was, he was also a monster to a lot of his players. Now, a lot of guys they'll say they respected it, they needed it, but there were a lot of guys that didn't respect or need that, and they weren't going to talk out about it.
That was at the end of Bobby Knight's career. Before,
Yeah.
Because when Bobby Knight was winning those titles and all that jazz, Bobby Knight was simply a teacher. That is what Bobby Knight always was a teacher. And then there was some kid who cried with something that is just so patty cake that it's not even funny compared to what Woody Hayes or Bo Schembechler were doing to their kids on the field.
Yeah.
And then Bob Knight, then
Bear Bryant.
Oh.
You don't talk about the Bear, but the Bear did some stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that included to Joe Namath. That included Joe Willie.
Yeah.
Who was set down by the Bear by hand very roughly. He was set down. But that again goes back to the days of the coaches being they were gods and all this other stuff, which I've never believed in either. But Bob Knight was always a teacher, and the way that Bob Knight gets portrayed by so many people now is a mistake. It is a mistake. Bob Knight did nothing wrong to that kid at Indiana, and he was crucified for this for no reason. Yes, he should never have thrown the chair. That was a bad thing, blah, blah, blah. But again, Bob Knight was nothing but a teacher. And that's my bottom line when it comes to Bob Knight.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know, if you think kids today have absolute power, look up the 2 words, Junction Boys.
Yep.
That's what happens when coaches have absolute power.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, enough said is right. We got to go. So thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate you. We are back next week. Hopefully I will be here. Once again, I am on the road, so I will try to get back here on time and make sure I am here to sit in the seat. If not, you'll have those 2 smiling faces right back with you. All right. Thanks for watching. This has been The Last Word. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy some more college football.